Okay, I'll call this is the January 27th Environmental Action Committee meeting. I'll call it to order. I want to thank everyone for being here, especially our new members. If we could start out with some introductions, but actually before we get started, I'd like to thank our Solid Waste and Recycling Division for the great Recycle Something campaign items. We have water bottles, and our hats are actually 100% recycled content. It's all plastic, so because that's also part of, it's not just recycling, but also using recycled products. That's important. Okay, so let's start on our right, and you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about yourself for the benefit of the new members here.
Hi everybody, I'm Richard Russell, longtime area resident, a resource probably in things about geology and civil engineering design. Worked as a designer, actually for the city briefly, doing CAD design on civil engineering projects, and went back to school in late life and got a geology degree, so that's enough.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm Rob Moore. I have been here just a little over a year. I've been in Arkansas on and off for about 5 years since I graduated college. Worked for Heifer International in Central Arkansas doing sustainable ag for a while. And now I work for Boston Mountain Solid Waste District doing environmental affairs and education.
My name is Angela Wisely. I work for Viridian here in Fayetteville. I've been a resident for almost 3 years now, and my background has been in energy and environmental policy. Spent some time with Audubon, Arkansas, and got my master's degree in public policy, public affairs in Indiana prior to coming here to Fayetteville. I'm excited to be here and serve the community.
Do you want me to go?
Sure. Okay. I'm Sarah Reed. I'm the city stormwater engineer and floodplain administrator. I work over in the development services building, and I show up now and then to talk about different things.
And just to clarify, Sarah's not on the committee.
Right.
I'm Garnet Wise. I'm with Waste Management Sustainability Services. I've lived in Fayetteville for, I think, about 8 years, and worked in town for about 10 years. And my function at Waste Management Sustainability Services is recycling, diversion, sustainability, keeping stuff out of the landfill. That's part of Waste Management I work for.
Great.
And my name is Peter Nierengarten. I am not officially on the Environmental Action Committee. I'm just the staff representative to the Environmental Action Committee. I'm the city's Director of Sustainability and Resilience. We actually recently changed our name in our department. And so most often you'll be seeing communications from myself or Councilmember Marsh related to business and affairs of the Environmental Action Committee. And yeah.
I'm Joanna Pollock, and have a background in some project management related to strategic energy planning with communities. Have a much longer healthcare oversight background, just a variety of things. Right now I'm pursuing a PhD in environmental dynamics with a focus area of resilience planning in communities.
Connie Crisp, and I have been with the public school system for many years. I'm now retired, but still work with the school district and help start the Green Team. I do not have an environmental background. I am a learner I'm a grassroots learner, which I love, and English, Spanish major, and did a service learning program at the high school where we did a lot of community work and a lot of environmental work, and we're still working with kids on environmental projects.
Aubrey, would you care to introduce yourself for the benefit of the new committee members and tell us a little bit about yourself?
I know so. Aubrey Shepard, I'm a former English teacher, as she is. I'm also a former outdoor writer for a bunch of the different papers in Arkansas, and that went on from 1974 to, well, still doing it on the internet, so that really counts, but it's not quite quite the same as having a newspaper column several days a week. But anyhow, this is pretty much my work in old age is to persist in trying to, as the Sierra Club cap I'm not wearing today, wearing a recycle cap, but anyhow, it's save the planet, because without the planet, it's like not having a body. Your mind can't do anything without a healthy body, and your planet can't feed you and care for you and provide clean air and water if it's not healthy. So I'm very happy to have been on this committee now for a few years. Thank you.
Thanks. And I have some certificates for our new members. I'll hand out. Robert. Angela.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you, and welcome to the new members. Just to get started, we want to do just kind of a brief orientation. But the purpose of the committee is to address environmental concerns, promote a safe and healthy environment, and maintain the natural beauty of the environment within the city. The committee shall make recommendations to other city committees and to the City Council on matters concerning the environment. The committee may coordinate all city efforts to obtain and maintain an annual community wildlife habitat designation through the National Wildlife Federation, which is subject to City Council approval. And Peter, do you want to talk a little bit about our rules and give any supplementary information?
Sure. Just to reiterate one of the things that Sarah mentioned, one of the primary purposes and functions that you all serve as an advisory role to our City Council, and so oftentimes the business that will be conducted here will be under that auspice, and we may often request a vote of you all in support of or in opposition to a particular proposal or ordinance or resolution that is being heard by the City Council, so that Ms. Marsh can take that recommendation with her and share that recommendation or not recommendation with the City Council. So a couple of housekeeping things. First off, the room. There's microphones in here. They're very sensitive to having pieces of paper put on them and being bumped. This meeting is recorded. You'll see at the back of the room there's a red recording light on. That means we're being recorded. These meetings are not broadcast live. They are edited and played at a later time on Fayetteville's public access television.
I'm sorry.
Government channel. I'm sorry. Yes, thank you, Aubrey. We have a strict policy of enforcing that we have a quorum of members by 15 minutes from our scheduled start time, so by 5:45. And without that quorum, we're not allowed to conduct any official business. And a quorum for the purposes of the Environmental Action Committee consists of 50% of our members, or 50% plus one of our members. We have 11 members. You all have 11 members, and so it takes 6 members to have a quorum and actually conduct the business of the Environmental Action Committee. So oftentimes you'll see me request, let me know if you're not able to be here, because if I hear that at least 6 people are not coming, then we can go ahead and give notice to everyone else that the meeting has been canceled ahead of folks showing up. So a lot more convenient than actually coming up here and then finding out the meeting has been canceled. Let's see, our meeting times are 5:30, generally the 4th Monday of the month, isn't that right?
I don't recall.
And I believe today is actually the 5th Monday of the month because we had a holiday on the 4th Monday. And so we've actually rescheduled, I'll go ahead and show this on the screen up here, the meeting times for
third Monday usually.
I'm sorry, we normally meet the third Monday. We're meeting the fourth Monday in January and February because of the Martin Luther King Day and President's Day holidays. So our February meeting will be pushed back on Monday to the 24th as well. But 5:30 in this room, generally the third Monday of the month, is when we meet. Just another quick housekeeping thing. If you'll go to, in your spare time, the city's website under the Boards and Commissions link on the homepage here, you can scroll down and find the Environmental Action Committee. This is our website. On it, you'll see my contact number, what membership consists of, appointments, and then, probably most importantly, you all's contact information in case you're interested in contacting one another or for the public to contact you all as well. I think that just about does it. Does anybody have any?
Hey, Peter, on that website right there, I'm looking, Angela, I'm pointing you out there. It says that hers is only the 1st of January through the end of December, is that right?
On whose?
That's correct.
On Angela Wisely.
I think that's because she filled a vacancy that was, someone didn't fill their full term.
Okay.
But I will note my name is spelled incorrectly.
Well, we can certainly fix that.
It's actually E-L-Y.
Okay.
Is everyone else's information correct?
There aren't emails on there, are there?
No, there aren't. Peter, do you know
Why is there not?
why there aren't emails on there?
Sure, that's a good question. I think this is the standard template with all our boards and committees.
Is that typical?
Yeah, I don't know why that's typical, but it is the standard, I believe.
Okay, but I guess through your emailing, we have everybody's email anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, I guess when people need to contact us, I've noticed that when I've tried to contact planning commissioners, their emails aren't on there.
Yep, you're correct.
Might almost be nicer than the addresses.
Yeah, that's something we might want to talk to the clerks about.
I can bring that up and see where that comes from. Is that, I don't know the answer to that question.
Yeah, it seems email would be more appropriate than texting somebody you really don't know.
Right, or showing up at their house.
Yeah.
So, okay.
One other thing that I just thought of is we do take attendance at our meetings as well, and city policy is that we have a 70% attendance requirement.
You also get prizes for perfect attendance?
We give you an attaboy.
There you go.
There you go. So I do track attendance, and when it comes time for reappointments to the committee, attendance is something that the city council's nominating committee looks at when deciding whether or not to reappoint someone to the committee. So just know that's something that they look at.
All right, any questions? Okay, anything else, Peter, or shall we move on?
That's it.
Okay, the first item on our agenda that we'll be actually considering is potential change to our Streamside protection zone down at Walnut and
Gunter.
North of Maple.
Maple. Okay, Maple and Gunter. Sarah, do you want to talk about that issue?
Sure. Wanted to maybe just give a brief overview about what our Streamside protection ordinance is. So this is a map that shows which streams in Fayetteville the Streamside protection ordinance includes. Peter, go ahead to the next. The way that we made this, when city staff and then went through our planning commission and city council process, we went through that whole process to adopt this, and it was adopted in March 2011. This is how we came up with the map for which streams are protected. Our GIS department ran watersheds, ran drainage areas or watersheds along all of our creeks So this is an example of one, to find the point where they drain at least 100 acres. And that is the point where we decided to begin the the protected stream designation. So that's how that first map I showed was created. Go ahead to the next, Peter. Then once you know you are looking at a stream that is a protected stream, the measurement for the width of the buffer is an on-the-ground measurement. So the person on the site identifies the top of bank. And then you would measure 25 feet from that to be what a lot of times is just called Zone 1 or the waterside zone. There's certain things allowed in that zone, and then 25 feet further is the management zone or Zone 2. Go ahead, Peter. Okay, so in both zones, this is a list of things that are specifically prohibited, and it includes grading, parking lots, buildings, and then, you know, just a lot of things you wouldn't want to do near a stream. Go ahead, Peter. Okay, so this is what the ordinance specifically allows in the first zone, and then it also states follow the Streamside best management practices, which we have a manual that says, you know, if you're doing these activities, this is how you should do it. So things like managing your yard, you know, your lawn maintenance. Go ahead, Peter. Go ahead.
Excuse me, is that correct? This is allowed, an application of fertilizer, herbicide, and pesticide is not allowed in the 25
And then the
feet, is it?
BMP is, when you look in the manual, is that it has to be, you know, according to what the according to, yeah, according to like fertilizer best management, and if you're applying so much, you have to be certified. So yeah, it's almost a little bit misleading, but you have to look in the manual to see in what form that's allowed. Like in management of lawns and gardens, it says that, you know, you should only be mowing like a reduced amount of times a year. Just
Probably once in winter would be.
yeah, a couple times a year.
If you're trying to keep the native plants, you
Right.
mow once in winter.
And encouraging people to, you know, back off the top of bank, you know, just as much as they can possibly handle. So go ahead with the next one, Peter. In Zone 1, there are some things that the city engineer can approve. And these are all, have the exception where it's, you know, if there's no feasible alternative, then the city engineer can approve these things, like a new stream crossing, like for a new street, or a driveway, or a paved trail where we're not able to get it further from the top of bank, or a new stormwater conveyance would be if you had a new development and there was no natural drainage way to the stream, then we would be looking for them to utilize a natural drainage way that would be in place, but if we found that there was no other alternative, then we could, then the city engineer could authorize one of those. Go ahead, Peter. Okay, so the management zone, Zone 2, you can do all the things that you can in Zone 1. Also, you know, there's an allowance for accessory structures that are 150 square feet or less, and active recreation uses. Go ahead, Peter. Okay, for existing property owners, basically everything that they had in place, like permanently, and activities that they had in place, such as mowing a backyard, are all grandfathered in from the time that the ordinance began. So whether their structure was there, their garage, their fence, their sandbox, it's all grandfathered in. Our, you know, city streets, portions of our city parks, and then there is a variance process in place, which was an important part of developing the ordinance in our city attorney's eyes, that we have a route for a variance to happen. Peter. Okay, so this is to kind of orient you with the proposal to change the starting point of the protected stream. I think I'll just come up here. So this is Maple. College Avenue is somewhere over here. And if you took Maple to Walnut, there is a stream that has been put in an underground conduit for many, many years. It's in above ground right here, and this is where it goes underground. It goes under this house, and this house, and this house, and this house, and very near some more houses. It is really an old system, kind of a built as needed as you go, not really an engineered system, and it has some really big flooding problems. It's daylighted right here for about 60 feet, and then goes under, or maybe right next to that one, definitely under 2 more houses, and get up to the blue dot at the top, and then that's where it becomes a daylighted stream again. This light blue line I put on here is just to sort of help you visualize how wide the streamside protection zone is in this area.
Is that 50 feet?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the name of
Okay.
this next street up here? Is that Gunter?
Yeah, what is it?
This is the Gunter.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm trying to figure out.
This is,
Yes, down here.
Lafayette.
And then Maple,
Right.
and this is Olive.
Oh, okay, so you're going up toward the mountain.
No.
the mountain would be.
Mission
Yeah.
is over here. is where
Yeah,
the
but Mount
Mission is.
Sequoia would be
Is up
on
here.
up
So this
there.
is draining
Okay.
off of Mount Sequoia.
I gotcha, okay.
Right. Okay, so you reach 100 acres, and the streamside protection zone starts here. In a little bit, we're going to watch a video of the flooding problems that are in this area. One of the major things that happens is water that doesn't fit in here, or, there's different grate inlets and curb inlets along this system. Water that can't get into this system in a heavy rain is taking Walnut Street. People call it the Walnut Street River.
Oh.
So we'll watch a video of that. So over the past couple of years, the city has been asked to improve the drainage. We know these, as far as I know, and there's probably more, this house has flooded, this one and this one. I've seen the basement of this one when it's flooded. And when we are getting a big rain, the city parks a backhoe right here, and we get ready to scoop all the brush that flows right here out, because we are concerned with this system getting clogged, which would increase flooding and which could cause a problem to one of these houses. So the drainage improvements that the city has come up with to alleviate the flooding issue is to do a very large box culvert. It was 8 feet wide and 4 feet tall. That would take this route of the yellow. So what happens when you do that is you have taken the 100 acres draining to this, and you've put it in this yellow system. So my proposal would be that the city regulates the streamside protection ordinances and zones at that blue dot up there. It's all a pipe system, with the exception of this one open area. That area was
discussed a little bit when I brought it to planning commission, but I think it is,
Excuse me, we
Yes.
have at least one person, public, too.
Oh.
Would you speak louder, because we're
I'm
not
sorry.
picking it up in this room.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you guys, are you, okay? So what this would mean to most of these structures in this area is that if they are in the Streamside versus them not being in the Streamside would be, it would affect how they would go through the city's processes for maybe adding on to their house, getting a garage, maybe removing a tree. Those I think would be the main ways that this would affect them. For this lot, it would affect the placement of a potential house. This is a buildable residential lot, and it is buildable back here. According to the ordinance, you can put a driveway in because of the wording that if there's nowhere else to put the driveway, that the city engineer can approve that. So that lot will be impacted by where the Streamside begins, because it will affect how close they could potentially put a house to the street. Now, it would not allow them to enclose that necessarily. If they were wishing to enclose that, the city would require an engineering study showing that it works and doesn't flood your neighbors. What questions are you guys coming up with? I don't want to,
Tell me again, okay, this is Maple, and the street going that way where
is Walnut.
is Walnut, okay. And that's, and you want to, I want to try to wrap my head around this. Okay, so this stream is underground and all piped, is that what you're saying?
Underground and all piped where it's red.
Where it's red,
And then-
except for that little section right there.
There where it's blue.
Okay, it's blue.
And then up at the top.
And what happens is,
And then up at the top,
see, this
yeah.
lot is kind of built up,
Mm-hmm.
a bit more than the depression here, and so it just, just comes up out of the ground and goes back under.
It goes back under, so it's just
Or the entrance to the pipe is just.
okay. And you want to alleviate this flooding problem by piping it up Walnut, underground, is that what you're saying?
Right. See,
Okay.
the existing route's not feasible for us, so.
Right,
So
right.
this is the route.
That's the route you would
that we
take.
found to take.
Okay.
Now, is this yellow route funded?
Yes.
Okay, and when do we anticipate completion of that project?
We are anticipating going to construction this year on the project.
Okay, but what about completion? Do we have an estimated date?
I don't have one for completion.
Okay.
There's another phase, north phase of this project that is also about trying to alleviate flooding through a residential area, and we don't currently have funding for that one. So I'm excited that we have funding to do this one. I've spoken to many of the people who have had their structures flooded, and I know that they'll be excited to have it funded too.
Is this considered in a floodplain?
This is not a floodplain. It, according to FEMA. Now, anybody in this area could choose to buy flood insurance. You can buy flood insurance no matter where you live, but it's downstream where it starts being a FEMA floodplain.
Sarah, you mentioned something about enclosure in that little section that is daylighted. What were you meaning? Can you explain that a little bit further?
It's an open ditch right now.
Okay.
It could be put into a culvert to match something along the lines of what's underneath Walnut to put a driveway across. But the city wouldn't approve totally enclosing it into a box culvert where you would put it into a box culvert and then just fill and make the yard flat where you didn't have that anymore. We wouldn't approve that
if it is in the Streamside protection zone. And if it's not in the Streamside protection zone, we would consider it if an engineered study by the owner showed that it works hydraulically. This system will get some flow. It'll get flow from whatever immediate area feeds it. That immediate area doesn't really get into the system now because it's full, but it'll be more open. And I think this would be a good time to probably watch the video. You want to go ahead?
Yeah, I was going to ask, so the existing culvert will be left, but you're going to cut it off on the front end?
Uh-huh.
So all its capacity will be available for the little stuff now in the future?
Okay.
Couldn't you do this without changing the beginning of the Streamside ordinance? I mean, because it's a new stormwater conveyance, so as long as you determine it's practical and feasible, or not practical and feasible otherwise.
I think it's, I wouldn't consider it as much as a new stormwater conveyance as, you can maybe consider it a new stormwater conveyance, but also it's piping with the existing stream in a sense too. I think that the city could do it. I think one thing to look at is, so if we take the 100-acre stream and we put it into this pipe, do we want to apply this ordinance to where it used to be?
So you're actually relaxing the ordinance because you're moving the beginning further downstream, right? So you're gonna relieve part of them from the having to comply with the ordinance, right?
Yes.
Okay. So the way I'm seeing it, if you move the beginning of the protected stream, then that one lot would be able to build after all, because they won't be...
They wouldn't have, it would be buildable now. They wouldn't have the restrictions about how close to the stream. It would still be advisable to stay somewhat away from it, but they wouldn't have the 50-foot.
Right. So this will actually help them after the new culverts.
And that issue, could potentially be addressed through a variance too. That would be another way to do it.
Sarah, I was just wondering, by having the culvert, not that you have any other options, I don't know, but by having the culvert go along the road, is that going to produce more pollution downstream since it's going to be right along the road?
I don't feel that it will in this, in this being along the road because it was pretty close to the road before. I think one thing with this project that we need to consider to prevent pollution is dissipating the velocity of the water when it exits our huge culvert and then goes into an open channel, because that's where we could really cause a common scour with that transition. But I don't expect a significant more amount of, I think the street water is pretty close to the channel already.
Another thing, I think Richard Russell knows a good bit about this plan. Is this to be under the street, or would it take people's, take out the sidewalks and people's private property?
Yeah, I mean, this, I'm showing it as like a skinny line, but this is 8 foot wide. So I didn't bring the engineer drawings because I feel like with the lack of the aerial and such, it's hard to see them. But in some cases, it runs sort of under the sidewalk curb area, and in some places, it's right under the street. And if we have to work with utilities,
It's challenging to thread an 8-foot wide needle down a street full of existing utilities.
And Maple is, I guess, adequately wide to that, but and it's a busy street. Walnut is narrow as can be already. I was there one day. I've been photographing this site since this came up frequently. See, the guys removed the trees, most of the trees from the property already. without going through the process, except talking with engineering apparently. And he's taken off a barrier that's a safety barrier off the front of the property. He's used a dozer on it, a small dozer on it, and has changed the ground level a bit. You can still see the stumps if you go out there somewhere this big around. So he's already violated both the tree ordinance and the stormwater ordinance. And
Aubrey brings up a good point, doesn't
and the
he?
effect is that this effort to talk about this old proposed project that would tear up half the street, on Walnut to do it, or half of somebody's 8-foot stretch. It's primarily provoked only because this man bought this acreage with the belief that he can get this through the city, even though it violates these two ordinances. And the fact is that pipe cannot, well, it's not even addressing Johnson Street, which is the next one block up from Gunter. And that's where the actual main biggest flow comes on top of the street. It's massive. I've weighted it several years ago.
Aubrey brings up a
Taken
good
pictures of it.
point. The owner of this lot is in violation of our Streamside ordinance currently. He cut, by my count, 13 trees, and there are still some trees out there that were within the Streamside protection zone.
What penalties exist for that?
Is that the open section?
To do that?
What we are looking at is if,
Is it that little blue section?
if we receive an application to build a house there, then we will ask for mitigation. And it's gonna be hard to get mitigation for
Yeah. I have a good friend who lives across the street from that site, and she started calling the city the moment this activity started, trying to raise the alarm, and she couldn't get anyone to go out and do anything.
Well,
How
we
can
were
we be
out
more
there right
proactive?
away. I mean, I really think we were out there right away. We got a call, and I forget where the call came from, but our code enforcement who does first response, go take pictures and stuff, were out right away on it.
Okay,
But-
what do we consider right away? I mean,
I
they
don't
were able to
know
cut
the
down
timeframe,
13 trees.
but
So what happens when somebody's in violation? That's kind of what it's, code enforcement comes out, do they write tickets, do they?
it can work different ways depending on how it's been violated, but it would be different with an improved construction project that had already gone through our process, but this did not include something that was already permitted. So what we have told the owner, and I'm going to mention that the owner is here. So.
There he is.
So what we've told him is that if the ordinance is applicable to this lot, the time he chooses to build, then we're going to ask for mitigation for the trees that were cut, which is kind of the route that we would go if he had asked for a variance, which is the way he probably should have gone into it, or the way he should have gone into it. Though what the code says is that if we don't have compliance with what we've asked for remediation, then we can send it to the city prosecutor's office and work through it that way. So basically, we haven't, with the trees, we haven't quite gotten to the point where we're asking for remediation because we thought it would be appropriate to connect it to a building permit.
So remediation was brought into this Streamside ordinance after the
It's not in
code
violation
thing.
of the tree protection ordinance.
It's not?
No. It's only in violation of the Streamside protection.
Okay.
Because it's a single-family lot
Right.
and it's not subject to it. This is another weakness of the tree ordinance. If you can clear a lot. Now, when the change was made after Coles, after the lawsuit where the city council was sued
Mm-hmm.
for allowing the people developing the coal site to remove those big trees ahead of time, or in that case, just as part of the process. The city council violated its own ordinance by allowing that. So there were the League of Women Voters and Sierra Club sued and won the suit in whatever district court or whatever,
In what, 2001?
I believe. You're right. And
So everybody knows.
so, yes, thank you. And the result was the city council had to set aside $600,000 or $800,000 to buy green space in Fayetteville.
How much?
At least $750,000, I believe, or
okay.
2/3. And this money was used to buy several nice parcels of property. World Peace Wetland Prairie got $50,000 of the 125 to buy that little parcel. But anyhow, that was a very special growth of trees out there, and it was it was widely publicized. So then, instead of strengthening the ordinance, the city council voted to allow mitigation of the loss of the trees that had been taken off. And that mitigation process is what we're talking about here, is you can plant something that on most development sites don't even survive. And to larger developments where they're having planted a lot of trees to make up the trees they've taken out, the mitigation has to be tended 3 years. And if those trees die each year for 3 years, they don't have to plant anymore these first 3 years. So the result is what you see many of these places where that has failed, and there's not any hope of replacing that lost canopy.
If I may, Aubrey,
Yes, sir.
we're talking about the Streamside protection
Right.
ordinance, not the tree ordinance.
But they
Well,
all
discussion
work
on
together.
that.
They are all, when you talk about climate change and all the effects that we have ourselves on our city's climate, the mini climate of whether it's you drive down a street and it's, or you walk down a sidewalk and it has no shade and it's horrible. All these things work together, environmentally,
do.
clean air and water.
You can't separate one from the other.
All
Yep.
are important. So, anyway, so this is the result, and obviously the gentleman's here to make this request or further it, and but it's been known for years, and it shouldn't be happening still. In other words, this process. And that particular lot, I congratulate you on owning a natural rain garden. This is what you need all in the headwaters. Every yard needs to be holding its own water. And because new development tends to have concrete pads, this lot to be built on, I suspect, the pattern's the same as other people's in the city right now with infill. They would put in red dirt, level the place up so that it couldn't flood. But on the north side of this property, the next lot is much lower. There's sort of a berm that would hold the water there. So as currently it runs down into that open part of the stream and then goes down the pipe. But it also has a flow down the yards to the north from there, and you can look at this yourself from the street. And it all collects down at Johnson Street, enters the open part of the street there. And so it's a pretty important thing that we keep this kind of property that's existed as a backyard of a house on Willow for many years and maintain its value for soaking in water, letting it go to the groundwater and to even the sub base rock water system.
So if I could summarize, the purpose of the of the stormwater improvement project is to mitigate and try and solve some of the flooding issues that we're about to see a video of. The net effect will be essentially replacing a stream that flows in the red pipe, with the exception of a little section of blue there, with a newly relocated stream in a pipe following the yellow path, with a proposal to move the beginning of the Streamside protection zone downstream several hundred feet to the outlet of the new pipe, which will have the essential effect of removing a streamside protection zone around a stream that doesn't exist as a natural stream. It only exists as a stream in a pipe.
So
Correct.
even though we're moving, even though the stream itself may be encapsulated in this pipe, the drainage pattern of the landscape still exists. And if we were to look at a contour map of this neighborhood, the water is still moving towards what was originally the stream corridor.
Can I ask just a quick, short answer question?
Yeah.
It'll just be a very brief answer.
Let's watch the video.
Okay.
I had another video. I think it's the one I posted.
Is this not the one you sent me?
Need to toggle.
Whoops. Sorry about that, I'm the only one watching it.
You still are.
Right.
And you
An
still are.
area person sent me, and then we'll do the,
Okay.
Oh, goodness.
Stream has shown stays when you're
While you're doing that, can I put a question in the queue?
Yeah.
Let's let Richard ask his question
Yeah,
first.
right, since he,
you can restate it, I don't know if I totally caught it.
Okay, let's assume that you've done the project. The yellow line now represents an 8x4. Are you doing the precast? Is that what you propose to do? Yeah, and let's say that's in place. Everybody's happy, everybody's got their grass back. It's all in place, accepted. We've moved on. Does the protected stream as drawn there still remain as it's shown?
I think that's what we're discussing.
That's the way I'm interpreting it, that
Because-
it wouldn't even shift over to the street.
Well, I'm logically trying to understand how, if it's in a pipe currently and it's a protected stream, how that doesn't then default to the new pipe. That's,
I think the real question is,
I think
what's the
that-
point of protecting a stream
Right.
that's actually in a pipe? Because
When we look at the
well, I mean, it's
purposes
what you're
for
currently
the-
doing.
Right. When we look at, let's look at the purposes for the Streamside Protection Ordinance. I mean, there are really a lot of benefits that you can draw out of a riparian buffer, but some of the big ones are reduction in nutrients to the water, stability, integrity of the bank structure, leaving a corridor for the water to flow so that it's not somewhere where somebody doesn't want it, but it's in a good natural place for it to be.
providing a filter for the water as it
A filter
migrates
for
towards the stream.
infiltration,
Reducing velocity of the stream.
Okay, so those are all services that a riparian buffer would provide, but the closed conduit, those benefits really aren't realized. Water infiltration near the closed conduit would be just as valuable as water infiltration 200 feet from the conduit, as far as I think a watershed, a cumulative effect on the watershed.
So one of the things that the Streamside Protection Ordinance protects the stream from also is chemical pollution. So maybe that's why it's in the pipe, but it's still it's still protected by the ordinance right now.
Well, and it still has inlets to the pipe, right, along that route.
There are inlets to the pipe.
So there's still a need for the ecological services to provide filtration for the water as it approaches the pipe inlet.
Would the new one have inlets that would, or no?
It would need to. I mean,
Yeah.
let's watch the videos.
Okay.
All right.
where is this video?
Okay, so we are standing in, like in the front yard of the lot that would be directly south of the lot with the open channel. And they're looking, and,
Peter, could you make it a little smaller? It's so big, I can't even. Yeah, that's better.
It's a home video.
And what kind of a
What I like about this one, okay, watch like right in there. We'll go back to it. Okay, do you see that?
Yeah.
Diver of brown water?
Yeah.
Okay, that's where, the close conduit goes right next to that house, and I think it's brown because there's erosion inside of that old, rock line channel, and it's flowing up.
So that's looking up towards Maple, right?
Yeah.
Up.
This is Maple?
Well, we're on Walnut, that was looking for.
Okay, I got you.
There's the.
This is Walnut.
Oops.
There goes the sign.
Is your new proposed 4x8 gonna handle this?
Okay, this is the 2011, the April 2011 flow, and then the new, there are varying opinions about what kind of flow that was, but I would say it was between a 25 and a 100-year flood.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I mean, a lot of people think 100, but I kind of think less.
I mean, I grew up
So,
a lot
this
from here,
was
and this
not
was
all
not
fit.
unusual.
This was
That
all
was
fit.
not usual,
Or it's
no.
not unusual.
Oh,
I mean, it
what?
wasn't this bad, but it was not unusual to have this extreme flooding.
Is that when college was flooded?
No,
Yeah.
Where will it go then?
I mean, if that's that rain, that was unreal.
you will be able to go in the old, and then,
So you're not,
usually in a residential neighborhood, you would design your drainage system to carry like a 10-year flow, and then look at, on the 100-year flow, consider, some of it is going to be in the street, and maybe even into yards, like on a new development,
street.
you would try to have a 10-year, and
This
then.
is the lot right there. This is the part.
This is looking from the other side.
Okay, this is
Yeah.
the lot
Which
that
is
the
all
gentleman
yeah.
owns.
mostly cleared out now.
That's the lot that you're.
Right
looking at.
here.
Yeah.
And
And
this,
this is a different flood event.
okay, this is not, okay,
It's
so there
not
are
the same
13 less trees now?
Yeah.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the nice thing, what's happening there, that water's flowing up into that lot.
Yeah.
It's not all going into
That's
that.
the
Right,
outlet.
downstream.
yeah, that's the outlet, it's the lot.
That's your rain garden out there
Mhm.
serving its purpose.
What, oh, could you go back to that just for a minute? I want to ask what, something.
Here, I got another one I'll show you.
Okay.
This is a different, yeah.
This is a muddy event.
Yeah, and then
Is
this
this a
is
different
yet
storm, too?
different storm.
Oh, really?
The ones that she sent me were
Two
a
different
different
storms?
storm.
Yeah, that looks like more water, I guess, then.
Yeah, and so then
A lot
here
more
you're seeing the
erosion?
lot.
Huge.
That's the lot, is where
Okay.
all that water is going.
Okay, and right on the corner there, there's not any, like, culvert or anything that, I mean, there's
No.
nothing there, it just, that's just the way it naturally flows.
Well, it comes out from under there.
There's the
Comes out
current,
what?
the
Into
current
that-
pipe is
It comes
there.
out of a pipe. into
Okay,
that lot.
okay,
Where that
okay, there is
railing
a cur-
was, the
Gotcha,
current
yeah.
pipe's running right under.
That's what I wanted to,
Yeah.
okay, but it's just not handling all of it, okay.
But that would flow behind those houses
Mhm.
and over that way and up to where the outlet would now come
Okay.
out of, the new outlet. You can see that green area back there behind
You
the
were
house.
looking at,
That's
that last
where the
video was
flow.
shot from here,
Yeah.
looking across the street.
Okay, to right
The water
there.
was trying to go down.
Okay, right.
This
And
way, but
where
much
that
of it was just continuing up the street.
continuing that way, but it was trying to go where that land is, okay.
Yeah, I was trying to follow the natural stream.
I got you.
pattern.
So I have one short answer question and one short comment, whenever that's appropriate.
Go for it.
In the proposed final setup, you're bringing as much flow as you can capture over here into the 4x8, and you're also continuing to utilize the red, is that correct?
It could see water in the overflow situation of the yellow.
Say that one more time, it could what?
In a situation where the yellow conduit would be overwhelmed and overflow,
Mm-hmm.
say like by a 25-year event, a large event, and the red, system could get the overflow, plus the red system will get some localized flow, just from the area.
So it would be a
Short answer
backup.
is yes, it stays in service.
Is in service.
Now, the comment is, I think you're down on federal shale, and your concerns about scour might not really go very far, because if you go down to the intersection of Willow and, what's next? It's the next street up
Rebecca?
past, yeah, you will see exposed federal shale right there. There's some pipes, there's that crossing, you're on the shale. So you're not gonna scour to China vertically. I don't know what'll happen sideways, but it's something to remember. I think you're gonna be cutting this whole enchilada into the Fayetteville Shale in order to set the sections. It'll be well placed, but you're gonna wiggle. It'll be, I don't know if you can
And
dig it.
maybe that's why the what is there with its older construction has lasted this long. But there may come a point when some of these homeowners want to look at, replacing or, seeing if it's feasible for them to eliminate, the portions of pipe that are under their houses. And that's something that we would have to look at separately, but they may come to a point where they would want to consider that.
I think your proposed yellow
You're here very well for
would
that.
be a great asset.
Looks like it. I mean, this would help to alleviate that flood we just saw. What would they have instead? Just regular rain? I mean, what we saw was pretty intense. How much would that help it, this pipe?
If it rains that much again,
Uh-huh.
what would,
Thank
how
you,
much
Aubrey.
Okay,
difference?
I think, like, in the later two videos, where we saw the more gentle flows, that may be a flow that the yellow pipe would just totally handle.
Okay.
And we wouldn't see any kind of big flooding on Walnut event, maybe until we got up to something, and I don't know what the, frequencies would be, but until, maybe if we've got something like our April 2011 flow, when I was out looking at that, there was water absolutely everywhere. So that is almost kind of a bad one to compare it to, because there was water everywhere.
But if something were to clog the inlet to that pipe, debris washing off Mount Sequoia, or if we get significantly more impervious surface added to Mount Sequoia, or more deforestation up there, or I know, like, at the time I was living on the side of Mount Sequoia, my house almost washed off. We had to get a backhoe and do the relief channel because there was some obstructions up on Assembly and something wasn't draining quite right. And so when you only have one structured way for the water to flow, there's not really a good backup system if that goes wrong.
Good point. And something bigger can wash through a bigger culvert, whereas the existing varies in size, but maybe like 4 by 3 feet, maybe kind of an average.
And then you have these right angle bins that could collect debris.
Road manholes.
Normally they'll build those as not necessarily as a right angle, but as more of a 245s to cut down on some
But
of that.
still, when we have those massive events, like, if it were just this area that we're flooding, we could get a crew out there and we could clear it. But when it's happening all over town at the same time, that's really hard to manage.
And that's gonna be the case no matter what, right?
Mhm.
We're just, the
Yeah.
status quo is a 4x3, what we're proposing is
Right.
an 8x4.
Right, but I think in thinking about this, even though we're adding this new piece of infrastructure, that's wonderful, and I think that's gonna alleviate a lot of the problem, I think it's still important to protect that original flow corridor, and not weaken that streamside protection ordinance.
That's my biggest question. I mean, obviously, it makes sense, the conduit makes sense. If it doesn't have to move the stream protection ordinance to do it, why are we moving the stream protection ordinance? If it's still gonna,
It's a question of what purpose does having the stream,
If we got-
corridor protection, have through there? I mean, it does place restrictions on those property owners of all those
Right.
existing homes in terms of activities that they might want to do on their property.
The existing homeowners.
Presents a barrier to them in terms of having to come down to the city and, get a permit or ask for a variance.
Right.
When it probably doesn't make sense for them to have to do that, given the fact that there is no stream.
I guess my two questions. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was wanting to, I guess I want to make sure and clarify the difference between streamside protection and like watershed protection, because the watershed's still the watershed. But this is the watershed protection ordinance, so we're not trying to protect all, I mean, because, I'm asking, I guess, is it, because you've still got pollutants and you've still got the nutrients, and you've still got lots of stuff affecting the watershed. But if it's streamside only that we're worried about erosion and velocity and stuff like that, that's different. So I just want to make sure I know which one we're protecting.
They're both of concern,
Right.
and both worth protecting. The ordinance is specifically geared to only a riparian type buffer.
Okay.
It's not a non-point source pollution prevention plan for a watershed.
Okay, so I think that kind of helps focus that we're not trying to protect Mount Sequoia or whatever. We're not trying to encompass everything, like the 100 acres that it drains. We're not protecting that. We're only protecting the channel, really. And if that's the case, then where the channel starts, I guess, is logical to start protecting it.
Well, what we're actually protecting is downstream.
Right. I mean, when I say channel, I mean open channel.
Right, but
yeah,
I
the
mean,
part where the erosion
we're
can take
protecting
place.
the quality of our water by protecting the stream channel. So,
One thing I like to think about when I look at this is, some of the things that Sarah talked about that you can't do inside this zone are what?
Add onto your house, add a
Add-
garage.
Okay, so does it, if this stream is in a pipe, does it matter if someone adds onto this house here in terms of overall watershed effect versus adding onto this house right here? I mean, that's kind of the question of, does it really make sense to keep this
Right.
boundary on here? Because, yeah, that has an effect on the watershed, but this also has an effect on the watershed, but is it really, I mean, they're both inside the watershed, but does the fact that this one is inside the old stream corridor make any larger difference or impact on the overall watershed?
But and the code says that, if the stream is enclosed, then the ordinance can be waived, so then it becomes kind of moot. We would probably allow an addition on, who was boring the pipe stream, and then it just becomes sort of an administrative thing of looking at their application and saying, okay, yeah, we'll waive it here, because you're on a pipe stream. So if it functionally doesn't apply along this route, then,
You're just constantly doing waivers.
revise the map to just reflect where we would like to apply it. Moving forward.
But you
Seems
would
like
let
only
them
the
build it.
open channels need to be protected by this particular ordinance. So like you could protect the short stretch and then protect where it opens up. But yeah, the enclosed doesn't sound like this would apply.
I would just say that, if we go back to that first video where all the water is just, we're seeing like the system is overwhelmed, the water is pouring through here around this house. So even though the system is piped, that drainage pattern is still happening whenever that system is overwhelmed, regardless of whether the pipe is here or here. The landscape is pushing it there, so it seems like we do need to have special consideration of construction within that zone, because that's still a drainage basin.
Yeah, yes, ma'am. I mean, that's.
Well,
what we're
Angela
talking-
was next, I'll read
Okay,
it.
I'm sorry.
So we would still be planning on using the existing piping as in the event of need, as it might, a 25-year event, I believe you might have said? Possibly, okay. So it's still structure that would be a support system to this existing pipe. I think that's significant in consideration, especially when we're considering that there's a part of it that is not a pipe in itself. And then I have one quick question. Are there other spots in Fayetteville where we have this underground culvert system in place? Can you give us any information, amount of,
Let me add to
number of
that.
miles?
Yeah.
That's a question too. In other places where it is in culvert and completely enclosed, is it also covered by the Streamside Protection Ordinance? Or is this the only place in Fayetteville that it's
There are some
protected?
other areas that are enclosed, like I'm thinking of one that is like under a large parking lot, like the Walton Arts Center parking lot. It's the same situation where we can waive the ordinance. So, I mean, it's a little different in that it's not, maybe quite as much in a developed neighborhood.
This
just
probably
the,
actually has better water quality than
Probably,
that, because it's not a big parking
because that water is coming
lot.
off of like Dixon Street
Yeah.
and that whole area.
But the point is that there are other places
There are others
that are protected, so then why would we take one that is protected, that is in culvert right now, build another culvert and take it out of protection, when it's, so really this isn't the only case in Fayetteville, it's not that special a case, because if we were to take this out of the protection of the ordinance, would that also take those other places out of protection of the ordinance?
Mhm.
Should we be talking about adding all of that yellow to the ordinance, maybe?
Yeah,
Yeah.
50 feet on both sides of that?
it becomes a stream.
I think that is possibly something to look at. I lost my
The
train of
answer
thought.
to the first question, though, would be, I think no, this
Right,
is
this
a
would be a
specific map revision to
specific-
just this
okay.
area, so it would not
Mhm.
remove anything else de facto. It would it's just a revision, proposed revision to
But it-
this.
But it could be a
It would
set of precedent.
set a
I
precedent
agree.
for
Could
other.
theoretically do that, yes.
In-
I think it could possibly be onerous to enforce this ordinance in this area where the Streamside has kind of functionally been moved onto a different route. Also, as far as the water quality services, your 1-inch rain and your smaller rains are the ones where you're going to get water quality benefits from the flow moving over the ground. Because 80% of the rains that you get in a year are an inch or less, and it's that first flush effect. The first inch or less is what can get the pollutants washed off the road, get them cleaned up. In a bigger storm, I think that your water quality services that the environment provides just kind of get thrown out the window.
So are you saying that when there is water flowing overland along the old original path of the stream,
Right.
there wouldn't be much water quality
Yeah, I mean,
improvements
I think we need to-
offered by keeping that area inside the zone?
Not when it probably won't see flow in a 1-inch or less event.
If I may, the biggest polluter of Beaver Lake is silt, sediment. And the sediment that was coming down those streets had not been in anybody's pipe. There was undoubtedly construction going on. There's been constant construction upstream on that place on Mount Sequoia. Now, if you'd been there that day, you could have traced it. You could have driven up there and found the headwaters further up. That wasn't coming out of rust in a pipe. That was coming off of somebody's lot. It was bare and unprotected, and there's no way, we have no stormwater protection that works during a heavy rain in Fayetteville, Arkansas. You see those little things they put out, those round, what do you call them?
Waddles?
Yes. Those
Yeah, they're
water
only this tall.
cuts under them immediately, and one of my specialties for years here has been photographing and putting online pictures of where the silt fence has got cut under and water's just brown, water's just pouring off those sites. And those guys that work there don't get there on those days and fix that while it's happening to try to hold it up and let it settle out. They're at home like the rest of us, trying to stay dry and safe. But, so, yeah, it's still the educational benefit of all the talk that went on when we were proposing this and begging people to understand this ordinance was so much about what you do on your own property, whether you're building a new site or it's the one you live on. How do you keep things, water clean coming off of that property. And the best way is to, soak it in, not complain about it being in your yard. A natural rain garden is a low place where it soaks in. And those are usually, if you look at the karst map of our county, you will see how the streams coincide with the sunken areas. They're where there is a break in the base rock. And people weren't considering that when they built this subdivision. I guess the existing red pipe was there, I assume, before those houses were built by some few years, and then they came as, pre-work on the subdivision. But nobody could predict what would happen upstream, as was said earlier today.
This only affects the sediment. I mean, that's all still the same, right? I mean, we're still going to get all the runoff coming into this new culvert from Mount Sequoia. I mean, none of that. The only place this would affect it is that one development plot. It's the only place for new construction, right? All the other construction sediment is still going to be coming into the river, just as it always has.
There may be some other nooks and crannies for development in this.
Sure, an
neighborhood, but not a lot.
an extra outbuilding or whatever.
Yeah.
But, okay.
I had a question. When the beginning of the current protected area, was that calculated like where the 100 acres started, and so that was where they drew the line, said it's protected from here on? So if you were going to do it today, let's just say the red wasn't there at all, it's roughly going to be in the same block there on the yellow. I mean, theoretically, that's where the 100 acres would still start, right? So do we, like, if the ordinance says where the 100 acres starts, where the protection starts, then do we have a choice to move it downstream a couple of blocks, or does it need to start where it needs to start, on the yellow? Or, I'm asking because
Well, what we did was we developed the map in that way, and then we adopted starting points on the stream. And so that's why it would need to go, like, if we were going to change this, it would need to go to city council to be approved as a different beginning point. I think it's important that, the city staff, as we go about administering the ordinance, that we know how to proceed in this situation.
Why did we have it start there to begin with? Since it was already piped, for the most
Yeah.
part, except for that one little section.
We just started it exactly wherever it was 100 acres or more regardless.
So it seems like
Now we're
that's
trying to
still
apply some common sense to that, or just blanket,
Yeah.
this is where it's gonna start, because that's where we said it's
Trying
gonna
to
start.
make it make sense, there's,
Yeah.
A lot of individual yards that this is.
I don't see that you're actually needing to change it because all you've done is add another piece of infrastructure. You're not creating a stream, you're not changing topography. The water is gonna flow over land just as it is now. Why change it?
Can I and these folks that if somebody wants to build a garage in this area, they can petition to do that and probably get a garage built. Is that correct? Is anyone going to say no to them about that?
Unless they're wanting to do it over the existing culvert, which aren't in drainage easements, but.
Well, would that be a smart thing for them to do anyway?
Right, they shouldn't do that.
Yeah,
Well,
I would think that would be doing them a favor.
Yeah, if it's less than 150 square feet, they can build it, without a foundation.
Without a
Within
foundation.
that, the second zone two.
So how
Would you
deterred
require
are they?
easements for this?
We need a few easements for this. I think they're all just kind of general, bordering the right-of-way. But not too many.
Would the city still maintain what's in the red currently after the yellow is built? If there is any maintenance on it?
I would say we would most likely only maintain it in an emergency situation. It doesn't.
Well, I mean, you have these places where unless you're really changing, you'd have to dig down really far to put the new one in or float it above it. They can't really go through one
I'm not seeing,
Well, are they
Sarah,
in-
how that existing system stays in place.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know how it happens right
yeah,
there.
the elevation here
Matt had
and
it-
there.
Matt had it routed,
Mhm.
and that's the engineer who's working on laying this out, he had it
Mhm.
going up, Olive and taking, well, no, not, taking the alley,
Okay.
kind of to the right, so, up this way.
Okay.
So I'm not sure how these interact.
How
Yeah.
many do you suppose actual access points for water to get into that old red pipe are upstream from, say, the point down there, all the way up?
Like, I know there's a flat grate here and here, and then there should be probably an inlet feeding it here, although this will get new, turbine inlets for this pipe here.
What's the?
So if,
And I think there's an inlet, isn't there an inlet like right in here somewhere? It seems like at the end of this.
At
Well,
the end
there-
of that,
when you
yeah.
turn.
Yeah.
yeah, there is one, and the big one
Yeah.
is at Johnson, which we're not
Yeah.
even seeing on this map. But the
Stop
big,
maintaining it, it's eventually gonna be considered abandoned because it's gonna silt in and be abandoned.
Sarah, what do you think Sarah, the net, effect in terms of what citizens would be allowed to do or not allowed to do inside that blue line would be whether or not we officially remove it from the map? Given that most likely, given that the variance process exists for these situations, so forget about the fact that they might have to get a permit or they wouldn't get a permit, what would they actually, would there be any difference in terms of what,
What they would be able to do.
yeah, ultimately what they would be able to do? Or are we
I
just,
think probably not. There would be some things that they would want to do that the city would just waive because it's in the pipe, and then there might be some things that they would need a variance for that would go to planning commission, and, they would probably end up doing some give and take or some mitigation, but would probably ultimately, you know, because it's piped, probably have a good chance to have a variance granted.
so the only real difference is that there would be a process for them to get to the same point that they could be given the right to do if the map boundary is removed.
So how does the current ordinance address in-pipe streams? Does it?
It says that the city engineer can, the city engineer may, you had it open to that section, you still have it open to that section, you said that he may,
New stormwater conveyances when the city engineer determines there is no practical and feasible alternative.
so that they may waive the,
Yeah.
requirements. when it's
So
made.
it seems like the new proposal makes sense as far as if you're protecting open stream banks from erosion and stuff like that, then it makes sense to start it there and not while it's enclosed. But you still got that open section of the existing, the little 50-foot section or whatever that is, that's within this 100-year or 100-acre zone. So it seems like that would still be fair game, and then the rest of the open channel would still be fair game
Would you
to-
apply it
for
then
protection.
from the street or from the existing open channel?
Well, I'd say, 50 feet from wherever the open channel starts, because it's all within that 100-acre, trigger. So I'd say 50 feet from wherever the channel starts, and then conceivably, the protection would stop again 50 feet down from the open channel, and then it would start again up there at the real open channel, where it goes the rest of the way.
I have concerns that it could possibly be onerous of the city to enforce the ordinance in an area where a
Starts and
stream
stops.
that is not actually receiving 100 acres of water.
Okay, I see what you're saying. So, yeah, that will no longer be receiving the 100 acres.
Would it be flowing at all?
Yeah.
I mean, would it, or would it just be like a
There may
ditch?
be springs, and it may flow some, or it may be like a ditch and it may be dry.
But you're right, it won't
And we won't
get the 100
know
acres.
that.
so.
I think
Right.
that's how we build it.
If we do this, could we, some way avoid this setting a precedent for other parts, because it would be just moving the starting place?
I'd be totally open to knowing how we can, not have, open up where, could have a starting point, challenge where it would not be appropriate.
I think they're all gonna have unique circumstances and are gonna require a fair level of discussion and hoping, but I mean, it takes city council action
Yeah.
to make the change.
I know every variance that we work through is a totally unique situation, and, takes quite a bit of staff time and planning commission time to work through.
All right, well, what do we want to do, guys? What are we technically being asked to write a recommendation on?
You're wanting to do a proposed, you're wanting to make a map change,
Yeah, the
right?
proposal is to revise the protected stream map from the first split to the second.
Yeah. All right, do you guys have enough information? Do you feel like you're ready to make a decision? Or do you want to see the videos again? Can we just